Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Spatial Innovision Limited's monthly webinar. My name is Tanya Manasai. I am Vice President of Corporate Services Division here at Spatial. And Spatial is the leading geospatial products and solutions distributor in the English-speaking Caribbean. Today's presenter is Mr. Roshaun Clarke, Head of Customer Empowerment and Deputy CEO of Spatial Innovision Limited. His topic is an introduction to ArcGIS Utility Network. Keeping track of asset performance enables you to monitor and analyze the performance of your network to minimize consumption. ArcGIS Utility Network is an Esri solution that enables the functional requirements of utility assets across a framework of next generation spatial information systems. Today's webinar will focus on how ArcGIS Utility Network works to deliver a safe working environment, reliable service, and customer support, no matter your industry. Welcome again, and over to you, Roshaun.
Thank you for that, my colleague, Ms. Manasai. Thank you for all who have joined. My name is Roshaun Clarke, as my colleague just shared. I'm going to be walking you through a series of, I guess, information bites around this new to some of us and not so new to some of us solution called ArcGIS Utility Network. Just to provide a bit of context, Spatial Innovision is the exclusive distributor for Esri across the English-speaking Caribbean, and we serve customers from Bahamas all the way down to Guyana as public sector organizations as well as private sector organizations. Many of you may be used to GIS already, and some of us may be, newcomers to the space. I will attempt to go through a webinar that speaks to both levels. So it's not too technical for the newcomer, and it's not too basic for the expert. Just a few house rules before we go on this session. The first thing is, do remember to keep your microphones on mute or on the off setting in context and being mindful of others on the call. Also, we are recording, so just to let you know that you are being recorded, and if you have a requirement to see this afterwards, we will be uploading it to our YouTube channel, and so you'll be able to revisit this section at a later date. Pretty much it goes up around a week or by the end of this week, so look out for it in a few days. Other things to remember is that based on the things that we're going to be discussing, I'm going to be speaking for some of it, and then I'm going to be playing a video for some of it as well. All right. And then there's a final thing is that there will be a few polls throughout this webinar. And the idea of it is to, one, keep you engaged over the next hour, but also for us to gather important information as to where you are, your level of interest, and how we can further meet your needs as they may differ from audience member to audience member. All right, so having said that, let us quickly look at the areas that we'll be covering for today. I will do an overview of what is utility network. I'll be diving a little deeper into understanding the fundamentals of the framework or the network solution. I'll be doing a little bit of a technical overview as well. And then I will be sharing the latest developments in the software model or the license model to let you know where to get started in the whole thing. And then of course, we'll have a Q&A afterwards. All right. So having said that, I would like to go to our first poll. You might be seeing on the screen, but my colleague will also be triggering the poll across the webinar. So we just ask of you to quickly take a few minutes and fill out the following questions. How familiar are you with ArcGIS Utility Network? Which statement represents you best? I have never heard of ArcGIS Utility Network before. Never in my life have I heard of this thing. Or is it, I've heard of your ArcGIS Utility Network, but I have never used it. Or is it, I have used ArcGIS Utility Network, but need to understand it more. Also, it could be, I use ArcGIS Utility Network often, and I'm comfortable with it. You know, you would be probably the most advanced of us on the call, or it could be just another option that we haven't thought of. So I'll give everyone a few minutes more to fill out, and then my colleague will let us know when it's completed and what the findings look like. Okay, so we have roughly 75% of attendees having filled out the form so far, the poll, sorry. When you're ready to close, you can close, Ms. Manasai, and then we'll see the findings. Okay, so the overwhelming responses, I've heard of ArcGIS Utility Network, but I've never used it. And this is why I asked this question in the start, because I needed to understand how technically advanced we are. A lot of us that play with GIS really are more concerned with the end result than the technical back end of it. And so I will navigate this conversation about the value that you can get from utility network, as well as what's happening in the background. Okay, so thank you very much for, yeah, we can close this down. Thank you so much for filling out the form. As I said, 64% said you know of it, but have never used it. Okay. How do I get to my screen? I'm still seeing the poll. Or maybe I should share the results. So everyone should be seeing the results now. But I will just close it down now. Thank you so much. All right, so what is ArcGIS Utility Network? The first statement that I would use to describe it is that it's a comprehensive framework for modeling utility assets and networks. And what we mean by that is as extensive as you can imagine. That's how powerful the platform is. So you are allowed, the framework of the system allows you to punch in all different kinds of data, traditionally how a GIS works, but it's more designed, or we like to say the term purpose built for utility organizations, because a lot of R&D was done in the back end from Esri to develop this. This was something that was asked for by utility agencies that were kind of having different components of their operations being in different areas and not having one cross-platform solution. So it's comprehensive in that it includes all, it's interoperable with all other platforms, but it also includes everything. And it's taking your utility assets and modeling it in a way that you can have one oversight and see everything that's happening, and be able to model it to project, to have real-time awareness, and also to look back at historical data. The second statement that comes to mind is that it encapsulates business rules and business logic to ensure the security, accuracy, and consistency of your geospatial data. And what we mean by that is it's easy to have a platform that is capturing the data But if it doesn't apply the business rules and the business logic, then there may be a disconnect between what is being captured and ensuring that the operation stays true to the core missions and the core objectives of the business. And this could be something as simple as your schema that makes sure that all of your data is aligned with the rules that you have, or it could be more detailed as to the overall vision and making sure that you stay true to your mission statement. ArcGIS Utility Network is also comprised of data type within the geodatabase, whether file or enterprise, and it's exposed as RESTful services. Now, this might seem like a technical statement, but what it really is saying is that it's fully safe and secure because there is a bit of a gateway between ArcGIS Enterprise, where the database is, and how it interacts with customers, clients, staff members, and that goes through what they call RESTful services to ensure data protection and integrity. All right. The second to last statement, I think, is also one of the most powerful, is that ArcGIS Utility Network enables you to depict the network as both a map and a diagram. And what that means is, traditionally for us as GIS players, we only, in the former years, we would mainly focus on creating maps and dynamic maps. With it being able to generate diagrams as well, you could be looking at the same data and be seeing both the GIS visualization as well as a schematic, which means that an engineer or someone who is not a GIS professional but needs access to the data in that type of format can get the data, can be looking at the map in the same time that they're seeing the GIS visualization. So it's almost like the screen is split in two, and you're seeing it from an engineer standpoint and you're seeing it from a GIS standpoint, which means that both workers or consultants or service providers within a utility organization can access and leverage the same data. It's very, very powerful. And this is from feedback from utility organizations as Utility Network was designed. And then the final point I would say is that it's tightly coupled with other core capabilities, such as attribute rules, contingent values, and editor tracking. And these things are all capabilities to enhance your workflow and to make your workflow actually smarter. So you're not duplicating the same rules over and over, but you could have one rule that goes across the organization in a very pervasive way. All right. I forgot to say at the start, we will be having a Q&A section. So if anyone has any questions as we go along, just please take a note of it. And at the end, when we're at the Q&A section, we will surely be happy to address the questions. Also, if there are any questions that we don't get to field within the time of the webinar, we'll definitely be able to follow up with an email and refer you to the necessary materials or have a further conversation about your needs. All right, so we're going to get a little deeper into utility network now, and we're looking at the elements of the utility network information model. On the outset, utility network is an information model. It means that we take all different data and we create information, we create models of what the real world looks like. In your model, you will also be able to really tap into, the flows. Let's say you're an electric company, the way the electricity is going through the distributed through the different lines, all that can be captured and be seen at real time. And if a team member is in the field and they lock off a valve for, let's say, a water company, that edit that person does on their device, because the ArcGIS system is so seamless and integrated to everything, that would be communicated to all other members or anybody else on the system. So someone in the office could automatically see, in the case of a hurricane, and you need to know which valves are on, which valves are off, that kind of thing. Any changes that's done in the field is automatically updated across the organization, which is very powerful. Now, these elements that you see here are kind of like pillars that put together, that hold up the utility network. At the top, we have the structure network. The structure network is anything outside of the actual utility that's being conducted. So what I mean by that is, in the case of let's say a water company or water organization, the trenches that the pipes sit in would be structure networks. Or for electric company, the poles that the wires pass on would be a structure network. It would be anything that supports the network, but not necessarily holds the elements of the network, right? Domain network itself now refers to that specific domain that you are working in. And so if the beauty of utility network is that it can be leveraged for an electric company, it can be leveraged for a water company, it can be leveraged for a telecom organization, even stormwater, wastewater, cooling systems, anything that has an extensive network can be used. We have even seen cases of campuses using utility network to track where all their power supply is for the campus, track their water supply, and be able to manage that real time. So that the domain network would decide of utility network, which domain are you playing in? Are you in the electric domain? Are you in the water domain? And so on and so forth. And then the network tiers kind of refer to the different tiered approach to it. Sub-networks now refer to the sub-level of visualization of the network. And this is important, especially for in-office operations for real time, to see where everything is flowing. Asset groups and types allow us for better management and manipulation of the different workflows. The device terminals now would speak to the end-to-end connections. There is a trace analytics, which is very, very powerful because it allows you to do some serious editing and assessment. And then diagrams comes back to where we're referring to, where you have the products that are produced for consumption. And so sometimes it might be harder to read something in a map format, but a diagram is easier to be consumed. So this is in a high level summary of the elements of the utility network information model. So a lot of folks would say there are many, I shouldn't say many other, but there are a few other options for a utility organization to manage their network. Why Esri? Why ArcGIS? Why now? So these are the key differentiators between ArcGIS as a platform and anything else that might be out there. And the main thing I want to draw your attention to is to that logo or that design or that graphic on your left, that cross-platform support. I had mentioned it not too long ago. The fact that the platform allows you to integrate other players. You could take information from AutoCAD and bring it in. You could take information from other systems, legacy systems, and bring it in. And anything is interoperable through a little scripting or JSON and so forth. It allows for one-stop shop, for want of a better term, or one hub, one solution that allows integration and management of all the different moving parts. And that's very powerful. Of course, it has an updated network model. So it's one of the leading network models that constantly is defined. And it's very easy to access. You simply go onto the solutions part of ArcGIS and you can download the actual solution template. Of course, we're going to talk about the license models that you need to have to get to that. But once you're in the system and you have utility network, then it's really easy to get the template and actually do some training with some existing demo data. And then once you're pretty comfortable with that, then it's a simple matter of making sure your data is fine and bringing that over and heading out, continue with your work. Of course, ArcGIS continues to be the leader in editing software and editing within any geolocation. So enhanced editing experience is also a differentiator for us. The services-based architecture is a very, very important thing. And I don't want to get too technical, but pretty much in the past, using ArcMap as an example and other stuff that Esri has done, it's typically a client-server model, which is fine and it worked in that space. But now we can do a lot more with a services-based architecture. And instead of moving the data around or drawing the data to different workflows, it's a feature service that just features allows for query and recall and that kind of thing. And that helps us to make the system more efficient, scalable, and so forth. And then, of course, attribute rules on their far right, I'll bring your attention to that, which is a very powerful update within the system. What that allows is for us to set specific rules when the attribute is being designed, so that when the attribute is being captured in the field or further updated, it makes sure that it complies with those rules. And what do I mean? I'll give you an example. If you are a gas company or electric company and you have a pump station that is, or any utility, sorry, I might be using the terms wrong, but a power station or a pump station, but you have some station that's inactive and it's abandoned. When that is visualized on your network, if you categorize that and you put in the rules that that is abandoned and it's reading that, when you're doing maybe in the future a later map and you include this station, it will automatically not go in, or it will come up as an error and be on a side of the platform called the dirty area, which is things that have errors, because it is reading that the rule says that from something is abandoned, then it cannot be in the active network, for instance. That's just an example. So you wouldn't be able to, logically, we know that we couldn't put an abandoned station into a network, but the 3D model, or the model that we have created has that logic and applied that rule through the attribute to make sure that we don't have data that's anything less than integrity level data. All right, so these are some of the things that separates us from others, and these are some of the functionalities that we have as well. So we just finished the first segment. That was ArcGIS Utility in a nutshell, so to speak. Now we want to go a little deeper, understand the fundamentals of utility network, right? So this diagram kind of, in a very simple way, says a lot. The graphic in the middle represents utility network. And what we see as a modeling complex is that you have three major tiers that you look at. The advanced network modeling, which is some of the things we just spoke about, how to make it intelligent and very, for want of a better term, up to the time in terms of the latest technology. Then there's the visualizing and the embedded analytics that allows you for deeper computation. And then the pervasive access that allows for the network to serve as much as possible across the organization. And then to the left, you see what I was referring to as the map and diagram in one, the dynamic visualization. So on the left would have been the map, and on the right side would be a schematic view that would be more beneficial to an engineer. All right, and this is the foundation of how we have modernized the infrastructure management within utility organizations. So we dive a little bit into each of those tiers. We start with advanced network modeling. And what we mean by that is that we can, it's modeling the complete network, wherever the data is coming from, wherever it's being connected, it's all captured in a full model. There's nothing left behind, right? On your right-hand side of the document, on the screen, you will see the different domains. that are served by utility network, as I mentioned: electric, gas, water, telco. And on the left, you would see the different ways that the different types of data that comes in to the network, right? And then it's all connected on a screen of some sort, whether enterprise or desktop, right? Now, the visualization and the embedded analytics, that more speaks to your business workflows. You want to see stuff in 3D, not just in 2D, to really get a better understanding. This helps with your business decisions. You would also see on the lower part a silo called historical and planned views. So what that allows you to do is look back at how the network was designed, configured, and operating in the past, look at where we are now, and also look at projected or planned ways for the network to operate. And this allows the business to move from a reactive approach to a proactive approach. It allows you to better prepare and when we say proactive, we know that a lot of times an organization looks at the GIS unit only when there's an emergency. Oh, tell me where these are. Where's the outage, power outage, or where's the leak in the pipe? And that's reactive. But and it's very powerful same way. It allows us to respond and react to things that are happening. But by planning and saying, okay, we know a hurricane is coming in the future. What do we need to do? What are the mitigative measures that we need to take to better plan for that? We can prepare the model, the network model for that. And we can then know what we need to do, the steps to be well prepared for such an event. It allows for advanced analytics. It allows for different types of views. We spoke about the schematics and of course the maps. So all of these are very valuable contributions to the business workflows of organizations. And then we speak about the pervasive access. I think from a lot of utility organizations, this is the most obvious empowerment from utility network. It's about how the network model serves the entire organization. A lot has changed over the last 5 to 10 years in field operations. The more that you can do with your mobile or your field worker can you do with their mobile, is more empowering and more efficient. So just to have a traditional map on your mobile is one thing, but to have, if you're on an enterprise level, and to be able to develop quickly within a day web apps that you are customized to what your business needs are, and you can push that out to your field workers, and they can use that with authoritative access and all of that. It really shows how pervasive the software is and the technology is. And all that is through the web or through the enterprise or through the portal, and it really increases the value of the entire operation. As the term says there, it's enabling real-time sharing and collaboration across the organization. And these are more examples from the desktop to the field to the web. All of these are different areas of the workflow. So now I probably would jump over to our next chapter or segment. I hope you're still with me. I should have put in a poll to say, are you still with me? But I suppose you are. So at this point, I'm not gonna be speaking for this section. I'll be playing a short video that can speak to some of the high level details of how the system works. And then we'll probably move to our next poll after that. So just bringing back this screen, this slide, to remind us of the elements of the utility network, because we'll be seeing a little more of this in detail within the video. So these are all the elements, and we shall start by looking at the ArcGIS Utility Network, the architecture, and the rules.
So let's go
support
ahead and
all
take a look at
kinds of
the
analytic
ArcGIS Utility
workflows.
Network.
These things allow you to do things such as perform inspections of your network.
Sorry,
following
one
a big
second. I think
storm
I may be
event,
having a little bit of
determine
difficulty.
the
Hello, everyone. Roshaun fell off, so he's rejoining shortly. Thanks for your patience.
My apologies, everyone. I seem to have clicked the wrong button. Human error. This is the things that we avoid by having utility network and stuff being automated. But I shall pick up where I left off by sharing my screen and going right back into the PowerPoint. So I think this is where we were. And by the way, this is a video by a colleague of us from Esri. And so when we finish and we upload on the YouTube, you will see the necessary credits and acknowledgements. And so you will also have the link to see the full video of this particular clip, because he speaks to a lot more as well. Okay, so let me share again, utility network architecture and rules.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the ArcGIS Utility Network architecture. And the foundation of the utility network lies in domains. Operational commodities such as electricity or communications, gas or water are all expressed as utility networks. Now, we can parse out the domains based upon the business function. So we call those tiers. So some utilities could have a partition or a sequential tier, such as electric or telephone. Others have a nested tier. We call that hierarchical. And they could be like gathering zones, pressure zones, storage, or district network, or service pipes. And all of these different tiers have different schemas, different business drivers. So that's what the tiers enable us to do, is to cluster this information at the network level and be able to apply certain characteristics of the feeders or circuits based upon the business. Now, we also have a structural domain. And the structural domain is in every utility network and supports any of the operational domains. For example, you may have multiple operational domains in a given utility network, or you'll still just have one structural domain. And that structural domain supports any structural facilities or pieces of equipment that can impact reliability or impact the assets of the operational commodity. So for points or junctions, we can have holes or manholes or vaults or frames. For linear assets, we can have ducts or trenches or guys or shear wire, mechanical cable to support the structure. Or we can have boundaries such as pump houses or substations or maintenance areas. So it truly depends upon the configuration of the organization. Now, these tiers, these operational tiers, I'm going to talk a little bit about operational tiers first. They have specific feature layers. They all have connectivity. So the first feature layer I'd like to discuss is a device. So devices represent operational features. They have action. They can open, close, transformers, controllers, such as switches, valves, transformers, and pumps. Then we have junctions. So junctions represent non-operational connection. It's still connected, but they don't have the ability to open or close. They don't have the ability to regulate flow. Assemblies are a collection of devices and junctions that do a specific business, at a given location. And then lines represent linear connected assets, such as wires and pipes. So for each tier, we also have an element, a layer called the subnetwork, and it's a linear asset, but it represents the operational properties of all of the features within a single feeder. So we call that a subnetwork. Now, to enrich those layers, we provide asset groups. Asset groups are a subtype that gives you a general description of the elements of the feature. So for devices, asset groups could be switches, valves, transformers, connections, it could be, or for junctions, it could be connection points. For assemblies, it could be transformer banks, pump assemblies. For lines, it could be medium voltage, high pressure. So general descriptions. Now, we've also got asset types that provide a specific description that appends to the asset group. So for every device feature layer, I might have asset group switch, asset type, three-phase disconnect. Might have asset group valve, asset type, one-way. So this enables us to have a really rich array of features or assets that participate in the utility network. Now, a new functionality is just going to be released this summer. It's non-spatial objects. And this is something that we're really excited about. So non-spatial objects are junctions or edges. And junctions represent non-spatial elements that represent point features, or edges represent non-spatial elements that support linear features. So these non-spatial records table have full connectivity. They have full capability to have structural containment associations, and they participate fully in subnetworks and traces. So these non-spatial objects are basically records without geometry that fully participate in the network topology. Really, really exciting technology. We'll take a look at that shortly. So you're not limited in the non-spatial objects. You can add additional fields to help represent those object attributes. You can even include network attributes or network categories to enrich those non-spatial elements. It's going to enable a higher resolution model for communication. So for example, you may have a fiber cable that has individual buffer tubes and fiber strands. And those buffer tubes and fiber strands can be represented as non-spatial. So you can have that higher degree of finality. You can leverage the full extent of these non-spatial elements as part of the validation and network topology. And you can also add non-spatial features via attribute rules or user experience features. So let's go ahead and take a look at connectivity rules. There's three types of connectivity rules. First is a junction edge rule. And junction edges enable us to connect point feature, junction, to a linear feature, edge. And that junction is defined by both its asset group and asset type. Same thing with the edge, asset group, asset type. So it gives us a high degree of regulation to make sure that our data has the highest quality and most rigor for editing and validation. The second connected rule type is junction-junction. So this enables us to offset point features and still have connected flow between those offset features. So I can have assets in a substation and not incur the cost of building the line connectors. I can use a connected association. Junction-junction. Then the last type is edge junction edge rule type. So this enables us to traverse, for example, on the slide, to traverse from an above ground asset to a below ground asset through a junction. That junction could be a riser or some sort of changing tap or a meter location that transposes the asset from above ground to below ground. The next rule is containment rule. So this enables us to have simple representation at scale and then dive in and see the deep internals of our infrastructure, such as this pumping station. Now, what's really interesting is in this pumping station, I also have junction-junction rules to offset my features, but still build connectivity flow through those devices. And the final network rule is called a structural. So the structural rule enables me to associate structural features such as poles or manholes, ducts or trenches to the subnetwork properties of circuit or feeder. So it gives us that capability of being able to run an ad hoc trace and return back structural elements of the network. So in addition to network rules to attain a higher level of data quality, we also have attribute rules. So attribute rules are exciting. The first type of attribute rule is a calculation. So if I add this transformer into a medium voltage line, I can build a calculation rule that says that I want to update the transformer ID with the properties of the line ID plus the transformer ID. Give me a new transformer ID of MD1001. The next type of rule is a constraint rule. So for example, if I try to put a 15 PSI valve on a 10 PSI pipe, the attribute rule lets that edit occur. But if I try to put a valve that's underrated for the pipe, it'll reject that edit. Then the final type of attribute is validation. So use a validation rule where you can create an edit that doesn't meet the validation standard, but you can initially run the edit. It's expected that you'll go back in and change the value when you run validate on that network element. If the value of point feature is appropriate for the value of the pipe, the edit will succeed, and if it's not, it will be rejected. So that is the
All right, guys, thank you so much for checking out that video. I hope you found it very valuable, informative. I hope it wasn't too technical for you. And if you're technically inclined, I hope it wasn't too basic for you. I hope you had the right sweet spot between both extremes. So as we look to close off, I'm gonna have our second poll, which is for us to better understand where you are if you are interested in ArcGIS Utility Network. So the question is, name your biggest challenge with adopting ArcGIS Utility Network. Is it time and resource? Is it budgetary constraints? Is it completeness and quality of your data? Is it systems integrations and our legacy system dependencies? Or is it just that it seems too complicated, you might not be interested, or other? So we'll leave the poll open for a few more minutes, like a minute or so. And we encourage everyone to fill out the form. We had way more engagement on our first poll. So I'm wondering if that means that I need to start singing and dancing on the webinar to gain your attention. But I see the answers coming in. So thank you so much for staying with us throughout this webinar. And of course, even if it seems too difficult or technical, we are definitely happy to schedule either one call or a series of calls to help you simplify, prioritize, strategize, schedule your next steps, and help you to get to your desired destination. All right, so yeah, probably around half of us have filled out so far. I'm pushing, I'm hoping we can get some more, so do take your time, guys, and fill out this questionnaire. It will really help us to better understand where we are. But of course, the final decision is with my colleague, Manasai, when we close off. So I'm giving you a few more seconds to fill out. All right, so the results are in, and again, the majority of folks have said that, well, it's a tie actually between budgetary constraints and system integrations or legacy system dependencies. So this is actually a good revelation, because it means that it's not so much your time and resource in terms of folks to the team to help with the onboarding of such a network. And it's not necessarily challenges with the data, but it's really just really that your old legacies or legacy dependencies, sorry. You're probably challenged or wondering how easy is that to integrate with this new system. And of course, budgetary constraints in terms of the level of resources needed to invest. All right, so thanks for that. All right, so as we wrap up on the last, we're on the last leg of our webinar. And the idea we want to discuss now is, how do we get started? What's our next step? And to explain that, I want to first kind of explain where the license modeling has changed. If you have been using GIS for a few years now, you would probably already have heard of utility network, but it has changed recently in terms of how the license model works. All right, so in the 10.7 or before versions, what was needed was a user type, and a user type meaning creator or viewer or editor or GIS professional. You would need an enterprise license, and then you would need utility network server extension. That's in the old model. What Esri has gone ahead and done now is to take out the need for utility network server extension and bundle that with the user type. So this allows for additional security the model that the user type has for security in terms of, assigning roles and privileges to different members and being able to know who is doing what in the organization at what time, or who's allowed to do what task and has what privileges and what roles and what user types. That is a very secure setup. And so the extension has been included in that as opposed to be a standalone requirement. And as you can see in the lower part of the screen, it brings in that identity security component that you see on the lower part, right? It's still operable with desktop, web, or device, and it still goes into the system, and it's still a server base for your utility network. But it's all, it's without the need of the extension as a standalone. So what happens if you are without a utility network extension? You can still view, you can still query, and you can select network features. You can view associations to include connectivity, containment, and structure via attributes, right? And if you have, let's look at the compatibility with the different user types. Probably that's a better way to turn it. So with a viewer, if you add on the license, so this is how it works now. You would have a standard user type. If you are familiar with the user types, they come with different existing apps and bundles. And then the ones that are not with it, which is like a utility network or others, you can purchase that as an add-on license, right? So if you look here at viewer, with the add-on license for utility network, you can perform traces and display stored network diagrams as a viewer. If you're an editor and you add on the license, now you can do everything except publish and administer utility network services. If you're a field worker, you can do everything similar to the editor. You can do everything except publish and administer utility network. And then if you're a creator with the add-on or GIS professional with the add-on, you can do everything. Now I'm rushing through this in a sense, and again, we can have a further discussion about this. But this chart that I'm showing you now can be shared, and it has an overall matrix that shows you what are the functionalities that come with the different layers of user types. So without an extension, you can view, you can still view connectivity. With the extension, you have the additional stuff, the trace network, view subnetwork, view diagrams, validate network. With the editor and field workers, you can do all that plus validate network, update the subnetwork, modify terminal paths, terminal connections, a lot more. And then with the creator or GIS professional, you can do everything, right? So I can share this afterwards or on a separate call with any of you to help understand how it works. And then moving to Enterprise 10.8, for each 4 core utility network management extension, you receive 50 utility network user extensions, all right? For each desktop license, it includes 1 utility network extension, or you could purchase professional user type separate, and then purchase the utility network user type extension, right? So these are different ways that you can engage utility network. But what I would say to you, honestly, everyone, is before we even go about buying, you might want to do a proof of concept or some form of testing. And Esri allows for that. You can create a duplicate or do some training in a sandbox environment that allows you to familiarize yourself with how it works using some educational data. And by using that and by working with us through a fixed period of time, your familiarity and comfort will increase, and also your eyes will open to the level of value that this solution brings. And then we can move from there to talk about a roadmap for you for investment in that. So having said that, I want to do our final poll for the day. And my colleague will also bring it up. So everything that we've discussed, would you like to learn more about ArcGIS Utility Network? And the answers that may best, you can choose which answer best fits where you are. Yes, I would like a call with someone to discuss further. I would like training materials, but I do not want to have a meeting with anyone as yet. I was only here for general knowledge. I'm not interested or other. All right. So we'll leave this open for probably a minute and a half. And at the 2-minute slot, we will close off and see what the general feedback is to move forward. All right. So take your time, review, and any answer. There's no bad answer here, right? So anything you choose works for us in terms of we are here only to share the knowledge and help you to further that if you're interested. All right, so seeing a lot more activity in this poll than the one before. We really appreciate that. It means that you're here with us till the end. In the next probably 45 seconds, we'll close out this poll. All right, so our results are in. Resounding responses. You would like training materials, but you don't want to have a meeting with anyone as yet. And that's fine. So what we will do, what my thought was, is that this webinar is called an introduction to ArcGIS Utility Network. We could develop another webinar in the future that is more customized to the folks who don't necessarily want to hear from us per se, but want more training materials. And we can kind of bring you on a learn path to understand the platform more and to see all the options as it develops. So thank you for that. So we have the closing of that. And I think with that, we are pretty much at the end of the presentation. I hope you found it valuable. And now we'll have a Q&A open session. I know my colleague had a few questions as well. She was actually throwing some questions to me in between presentations. So we're happy to discuss further.
All right. So thank you, Roshaun. A lot of the questions that I had, I noticed that you're a really good speaker. You answered most of them. It's mostly to recap because person started late. How can I get access to this product?
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's a good question. A lot of people ask that. All right. So Utility Network Editor can be deployed through Esri Professional Services. In other words, Esri or Spatial can engage you with some professional services to help you get started. And we would be responsible for your existing implementation. Now, I have a colleague in the company called Houghton Ferguson. I will share his email at the end as well. He can be reached out for in terms of implementation, or I can support and connect you as needed.
All right, thanks for that. Does Utility Network Editor work with ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise?
All right, Utility Network Editor is only available with ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 and above. As I said before, it changed as it changed when Enterprise was upgraded to 10.8. So some of the things that could be done in 10.7 have changed now. So Editor is really available with Enterprise 10.8 and beyond. And this is network editor, not the overall utility network.
Okay. How much training does it require to use it?
Little training is needed, you know. Because the utility network editor is designed to be simple, you know. It's simple to use and it's intuitive to many users. I would even go beyond many and say to any user. You know, the editor provides focused tools only when a user needs them. So it makes it very easy to use. You know, become bombarded with too much technicality. And although it is important to note that the amount of training will depend on the complexities of the built workflows. So it's really, you know, I can say it's easy, and then the next person might say, no, it's not. It also depends on the size of the organization and what you're trying to achieve. But it is designed to be user-friendly and intuitive, to not be bombarding the person with technicalities.
All right, so it is applicable to any kind of unique network model, you're saying?
Yeah.
All right, great. I think you answered this question about we can do tracing,
right.
Yes?
Yes, definitely you can do tracing. That's for the editors, the viewers, the persons who want to modify. Yeah, you can do tracing.
All right.
And to specify, there's upstream and downstream tracing, but you have the option to add your own custom tracing tool. And what I mean by that is, if you want to trace up the line of the network to see how things are going, or if you want to trace down, in whichever direction, it can go both directions. And that's if it's radial, or if it's like a multiple mesh type of environment, we can do tracing as well.
All right. So suppose I don't have utility network.
Okay. Well, utility network editor is designed to work with the organization's utility network. So you would want to set up the utility network, and then we're speaking more to the editor part of it. If you have data you would like to edit that is not within the utility network, we would recommend something called Suite for ArcGIS, and this offers the same editing environment, and it is configurable and will work with any feature service.
All right. Can I use it disconnected?
Unfortunately, the functions are not available in a disconnected environment at present. Once these are available, the utility network editor will support this workflow on Android, iOS, and Windows.
All right. But does utility network replace ArcGIS Pro though?
All right, the simple answer is no. ArcGIS Pro will still be needed to configure, publish, and deploy your utility network. You may also want to use ArcGIS Pro for advanced GIS work. So basically, the editor, the utility network editor is very well suited to replace unneeded desktop solutions for engineering, field, and support staff. And what this does is really enables them to have a more flexible working environment, both in the office and in the field, without a steep learning curve that way traditional desktop solutions would require. You know?
So can I use utility network editor to reduce my license costs?
All right. Utility network editor requires a user license, a named user in ArcGIS Enterprise, and the ArcGIS Utility Network extension. Some cost reduction can be gained by moving users from the desktop to the editor, but both user type and utility extension will be needed. Some further cost reductions could be gained as utility network editor infrastructure costs are low due to it being a browser-based application. So there is some cost that you can reduce, but it's really case by case, to be honest.
All right, thank you. So I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat.
Okay.
And we're close to the wrap-up time. So I'll just wait a few minutes to see if anybody, will lose their shyness.
Right.
And pose a question.
Right. No, well, so again, just to conclude and to summarize, utility network is a comprehensive platform, a framework of functionalities and capabilities that drastically enhance your workflows by like bringing all of your assets together, modeling it, and giving you a bunch of editing and analytic capabilities to best manage it. And of course, the main thing is that it has real-time modeling, so it can model real-time world events such as hurricanes, storms, and that really helps in both reacting to emergencies as well as planning for upcoming or seasonal emergencies.
All right, thanks. But somebody has posed a question here, Sean. Is the extension available through the Government of Jamaica licenses agreement?
Okay, so the enterprise license agreement in general should allow for access to software. For that specific utility network, I would probably want to do some research and speak to a colleague just to confirm, but I would assume that it's available based on the nature of what an ELA is.
And we're talking about the GOJ licenses.
Right, so for those on the call that may be wondering, the Government of Jamaica has an enterprise agreement with Esri where they have access to scalable growth with GIS through access to the software. From that general thought, it should be available. However, utility network being more focused to utility organizations than government agencies, I would just want to confirm, I just want to do some research and confirm that it was included in the package or will be included in the next round of the package. Hope that answers the question.
Right. So thank you, Roshaun. This is where we'll have to leave it today. So thank you for a very informative presentation. Thank you for taking the time to sit in on our webinar, attendees. Please access the recordings of this and previous Spatial monthly webinars from the Spatial YouTube channel. All right. So we hope you'll be able to join us for the next scheduled Spatial monthly webinar at the end of October. So see you then and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for having me. All the best, guys. Bye-bye.